Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are unpacking a massive, really fundamental paradigm shift. We're looking at what it actually takes to survive and thrive in the incredibly fast-paced, totally unpredictable reality of the 21st century. We're drawing our insights from a fascinating review by John Pearson of General Stanley McChrystal's groundbreaking book, Team of Teams. If you've ever felt like the old ways of doing things just aren't working anymore, no matter how hard you push, well, you are definitely going to want to pay close attention to the concepts we're breaking down today, especially our main focus, exactly why maps completely failed the military in Iraq and what that means for you. Picture this. It's the early 2000s, and General Stanley McChrystal has just set up his task force headquarters in Balad, Iraq, to fight al-Qaeda. Now, to a soldier, maps are absolutely sacred. They're hung on practically every single wall. In traditional military strategy, a well-marked map is everything, right? At a single glance, it tells a commander the friendly situation, the enemy situation, the plan for future ops, the whole shebang. It's this revered, almost religious tool for solving complex operational problems. But as General McChrystal stared at these sacred maps in Iraq, he realized a terrifying truth. They were suddenly, utterly failing him. To understand exactly why the ultimate tool of strategy just broke down and how it directly applies to our modern organizations, we'll follow this agenda. We're looking at the sacred map, networked mayhem, the whiteboard pivot, chess masters to gardeners, and finally, your VUCA reality. Okay, let's dive into part 1, the sacred map and the limits of tradition. For pretty much all of history, we've relied on rigid hierarchies and static tools to make sense of the world. Warfare historically was essentially about terrain. It was about territory held, physical geographic goals, basically moving pieces around on a physical board. And because of that, the map was the quintessential tool for seeing the problem and creating a solution. But those maps in Balad completely failed because they just could not depict the fluid, everywhere-at-once reality of al-Qaeda in Iraq. I mean, think about it. How do you map an enemy that can upload a video to an audience of millions from literally any house, in any neighborhood? Or an enemy driving a bomb around in any car on any street? A static map just can't capture that fluid reality. The traditional tool was completely blind to the actual problem. Which brings us to part 2, networked mayhem, or the efficiency trap. General McChrystal quickly figured out a really harsh reality. Efficiency is simply no longer enough against modern networked mayhem. Military analyst John Arkella captured this terrifying lack of hierarchy perfectly. He said, "We killed about 20 of al-Qaeda's number 3s over the past decade, but everyone in a network is number 3. When you're facing a decentralized network, traditional org charts and top-down hierarchies are completely obsolete. Taking out a designated leader doesn't stop the machine because the machine doesn't actually rely on a single leader. It relies on the network." And this brilliantly illustrates how failing to understand networked mayhem comes with a massive cost in the corporate world too, $180 million to be exact. To see how a traditional corporate hierarchy got totally outmaneuvered by the 21st century, we need to talk about United Airlines. You might actually know the story. It starts with a musician named Dave Carroll. During a flight, United Airlines baggage handlers ended up breaking his $3,000 Taylor guitar. For 9 grueling months, Dave tried to get the airline to take responsibility. But instead of getting it resolved, he was forced to navigate this massive, complicated corporate hierarchy. It was a complete telephone directory maze of customer service reps who were way more focused on their internal rules than actually solving his problem. So, hitting a total brick wall in the traditional hierarchy, Dave tapped into the modern network. He wrote a super catchy song called United Breaks Guitars and threw a music video up on YouTube. Consider the timeline of the asymmetric damage this single individual caused to a massive corporation just through social media. Day 1, the video racks up 150,000 views, which finally prompts an apology call from an incredibly abashed director at United. But the network was already moving way faster than the corporate hierarchy could ever react. By day 3, the video surpassed 1 million views, and United's stock price fell 10%. That drop? It cost shareholders $180 million in value. That is literally 600,000 times the value of the broken guitar. By day 7, it was the #1 download on iTunes. The old organizational chart was completely unequipped to handle this networked reality. Let's move to part 3, the whiteboard pivot and mutable relationships. To survive this shift, we have to realize that our world has gone from being merely complicated, like a predictable machine with a bunch of parts, to being complex, where everything is constantly changing and reacting.
So how did General McChrystal solve this in Iraq? Well, his solution is honestly our favorite metaphor for modern management. In place of those sacred maps, whiteboards began to appear in their headquarters. Pretty soon, they were everywhere. Instead of looking at static geographical features, the things themselves, the team stood around with markers, thinking out loud. They diagrammed what they knew, what they suspected, and what they flat out didn't know. They drew mutable relationships, they mapped the connections between things. A map tells you where a building is, but a whiteboard? A whiteboard lets you continuously map the fluid, changing relationships of the people moving between those buildings. It's an entirely different way of seeing the world.
Let's see how this builds in part 4, Chess Masters to Gardeners, the New Leadership. So, this new whiteboard world requires a completely new archetype for leadership. General McChrystal actually confesses that this transition was incredibly difficult for him. We all kind of have a love affair with the heroic leader, don't we? We think of the cool-headed CEO or the brilliant chess master who controls every single move of the organization from the top down. But in a complex, fast-moving network, that bottleneck of control is fatal. The temptation to lead as a chess master has to give way to a new approach, the gardener. Think about it. A gardener doesn't control exactly how a plant grows. A gardener humbly enables the ecosystem. They provide the right environment, the resources, the shared consciousness, and then they get out of the way. They enable rather than direct. Which brings us to our final section, part 5, your VUCA reality and navigating the chaos. The chaos that General McChrystal faced in Iraq and that viral disaster United Airlines faced online, those are the exact same forces operating in your world right now. The military uses the acronym VUCA to describe this modern landscape, and honestly, it applies perfectly to business. You are facing volatility, where things change rapidly and totally unexpectedly. Uncertainty, where the past is just no longer a reliable predictor of the future. Complexity, where there are countless interconnected variables, making it basically impossible to see a straight cause and effect line. And ambiguity, where the rules of the game are constantly shifting under your feet. In this VUCA reality, relying on outdated organizational charts is incredibly dangerous. When organizations realize they're falling behind in a VUCA world, their default reaction is almost always the wrong one. As McChrystal observed, they just try to work harder. They deploy more resources, throw more people at the problem, and strive for greater efficiency within an existing, broken operating model. It's kind of like obnoxious tourists trying to make themselves understood in a foreign country by simply speaking their native tongue louder. You know what I mean? You're just raising the volume to no good end. You aren't speaking the right language for the environment. So really ask yourself right now, are you just raising the volume? Are you caught in the efficiency trap, trying to optimize some old hierarchy when you should really be enabling a new network? Remember Dave Carroll. In today's highly connected world, you might just be one Yelp comment, one viral video, or one angry blog post away from an immense crisis. Do you have the flexible whiteboard-style agility to respond? Or are your leaders stuck trying to find the answers on an outdated map? I want to leave you with this final, really provocative thought straight from John Pearson's staff meeting questions. General McChrystal said the map was once the quintessential tool for seeing problems and creating solutions, yet he had to completely abandon it because everything changed. So what quintessential tool are you still relying on, even though everything around you has completely changed? Take some time to think about that. Maybe it's time to trade in your maps for some whiteboards. Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer, and we will catch you next time.